Okay, facts, logic, and wisdom above all else. Let's take a quick look at the evils of academia. Now, this is only one source. This is from Wikipedia, actually, but you can find this exact same thing said over many countless of hundreds of thousands of websites if you were to type in the term anatta and anatman. As it so happens, I'm the world's foremost expert on this specific term as it exists within context and within the teachings of original Buddhism. And I do emphasize original, but let's first take a look at what a common person would come across if they were in high school or college, or specifically a philosophy major, and wanted to find out some of the key tenets, some of the key metaphysical or specific philosophical tenets of a particular teaching. So this is what Wikipedia says. And by the way, all religious debates, I'm sure you probably don't know this, are sola scriptura, which means you actually have to reference what the teachings actually say, rather than somebody's commentary upon saying. So to actually reference commentary as what the teachings say is, of course, ridiculous, absurd, and asinine, but that's what this does, and I'll let you take a look at the references here, as you can actually see. We're looking at 1, reference 2, 3, 4. But we'll only look at this first short little sentence here. In Buddhism, the term anatta, Pali term, or Sanskrit anatman, refers to the doctrine of no self. But there's no such passage actually within doctrine, not within the Digha Nikaya, Majjhima, Samyutta Nikaya, and Gotara Kudaka Nikaya. It doesn't exist anywhere. There's no such thing as a doctrine of no self. There is no such passage in any translation. So I'll just call that interesting, if not, of course, appalling and pathetic. There is no unchanging, permanent self or soul or essence in phenomena. In phenomena. Well, that's true, but Advaita Vedanta and all forms of monistic metaphysics in India and Greece teach the exact same thing. There's nothing permanent within this neat little word, phenomena. Yeah, if I said that there's no signal in the radio and no little people inside the TV, that's not a denial of a signal or people, is it? Yeah, this is just simplex via negativa. It is one of the 3 marks of existence. Now, existence is an interesting term. Existence means to be outside of yourself. Specifically, we're talking about psychophysical existence, along with dukkha, anicca. Yes, the Buddhist concept of anatta, or anatman, is one of the fundamental differences between mainstream Buddhism and mainstream Hinduism. Well, number one, Hinduism is not a religion. And this statement has no basis in fact, nor is there any, not even a single iota of scriptural affirmation of this nonsense, with the latter asserting that the Atman, exists. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but what you actually call Hinduism, the word Hinduism comes from the word Sindhu, the Indo-Arya word for the sea, came to apply to the people of the region east of the Indus River. The word Hinduism has no connection to any specific religion at all, but a peoples in an area. And of course, I've said this before in other videos, and tons of Indians have said, yes, you're 100% correct. You silly Westerners, keep using the word Hinduism. Let's give a actual reference. Encyclopedia of Religion and Ethics. Hinduism has never prepared a body of canonical scriptures or common prayer books, never held general council, convocation, never defined relationship between laity and clergy, never regulated the canonization of saints or their worship. There's no such thing, in short, as Hinduism religion. There's Sanatana Dharma, Advaita Vedanta. There's all forms of belief systems in India, but there's no such thing as Hinduism. It's not, this boogeyman, as you were, is nothing that stands against so-called Buddhism. Specifically, what Gautama said he taught, the actual doctrinal definition is in Samyutta Nikaya 5.4, when he said what it was that he taught, the historical Gautama. He said he taught Brahmayana. The translation of Brahmayana is path to the absolute. Yes? We're talking about doctrine versus commentary, garbage, and nonsense, because facts, logic, and wisdom above all else. And importantly, remember this, all religious debates are sola scriptura, meaning in doctrine. Now, the references that this gives, the little 1 and 2 right here, it will point you to the Wayback Machine for Encyclopedia Britannica. Well, Encyclopedia Britannica, well, that's an authority. Well, in debates, there are no authorities. There's only experts and novices. I'll take a look at Encyclopedia Britannica passage that this makes reference to in making absurd and ridiculous claims on original Buddhism. Cambridge University Press. Anatta is a doctrine of non-self, an extreme empiricist doctrine that holds the notion of unchanging permanent self is a fiction and has no reality. Once again, this is not found within doctrine. This is commentarial garbage. This is ridiculousness. Let's take a look at what Buddhism actually teaches. And here we go. At Samyutta Nikaya 3.196, the time Savatthi, the Venerable Radha, seated himself and asked Gautama, Anatta, I hear, said Venerable, what, pray tell, does Anatta mean? Just this Radha. Form is not the soul, sensations are not the soul, perceptions. And the Pali, the passage goes, Rupa anatta, Veda anatta, Sankhara anatta, Vijnana anatta, Nama Rupa anattati. The psychophysical is not the soul. And this, of course, is no different than what Advaita Vedanta teaches, which, of course, there's not a single person on this earth that thinks that Advaita Vedanta doesn't teach that there's no soul. It's ridiculous. This is common neti via negativa apophatic methodology of objective negation. This is not the soul. Now, I've asked these people before, and of course they've never given an answer. In the 25 plus years of debated them, I said, you think that the actual teachings of Buddhism are logical, consistent, and what? Well, yes, they are. Yes, they are. I said, well, if Buddhism really taught that there was no soul, it would just simply say, followers, there's no soul. Boom. Period. End of story. There's no such passage. Actually, the Pali word for natata, for no soul, is natata, which of course is said to be a heresy. So if you're looking for no soul as a compound word, the word is natata, and there are 5 occurrences of that within doctrine, and of course it is a heresy. But I mean, Buddhism nowhere says there's no soul. It actually gives thousands of appellations, of which I have a reference you could download. I'll give you a link to it in the description below. Atta vasarate, the soul is charioteer. Atta sarana nana sarana, the soul is light. The soul is refuge with none other as refuge. On and on and on. There are hundreds and hundreds of positive appellations of the Atman, or in Pali the word is Atan. By the way, the Pali word for Atan is the exact same word in ancient Egyptian. Ancient Egyptian, Atan. Pali word Atan. Yes, so there's nowhere a denial of soul within doctrine, nor is there any such nonsense as Hindu religion. Hinduism refers to a people. It's not my opinion or feeling or belief. It's a fact. So these are the references that they make in this Wikipedia article, these commentarialists, Richard Gombrich and these other people, but there's no reference to actual doctrine itself. Not a single one. You see, here's the references that they give. And of course they keep pointing back to Encyclopedia Britannica, so we'll have to take a look at that. And yeah, this notion that this is a Hindu idea is not only fallacious, ridiculous, absurd, but it's completely and wholly inaccurate. So, concept of an Atma is one of the fundamental differences between mainstream Buddhism and mainstream Hinduism. There's no such thing as a religion of Hinduism, nor is there a doctrinal passage of the denial of the Atman anywhere within doctrine. Not a single one. There's no such thing as a doctrine of no soul. Not even a single passage exists. And boy, let me tell you, after decades and decades of translating Pali, I've been through it all. I know all 662 occurrences of the term Anatta within doctrine. Get a digital search engine for that, by the way, for Romanized Pali. So I know every one of them. All 662, believe it or not. So here we go. Let's take a look at Encyclopedia Britannica, this other one. So this is how academia works. They'll say something ridiculous and they'll point you to another reference, which is also too non-doctrinal. It's more academic spew, filth, muck, nonsense. So here's Encyclopedia Britannica. That's the authority. This is the authoritative source we got here. Yes, sure. Anatta, Pali, non-self. Sanskrit, Anatman. Well, Sanskrit, Anatman is Pali Anatta, so they got it right so far. In Buddhism, the doctrine that there is in humans no permanent underlying substance that could be called the soul. Well, there's no such passage, not even a single passage, not in any translation for that matter. Don't you find that interesting? Not a single translation of any type says any such thing within the Nikayas, yes? Which is the pre-sectarian corpus. Yeah, we're talking about for Theravada exists, for Mahayana, all this other stuff that came later, which I'm not interested in. I'm interested in the original article, yes? Instead, the individual compound five factors, or skandhas, or khandhas in Pali, yes, rupa, vedana, sankara, vijnana. Yeah, the psychophysical is not the soul. That's right. The radio is not the signal. If I stupidly told you that nothing of the radio was the signal, would you think I was denying the signal? Why, you would not. To say that the psychophysical is not the soul is not a denial of the soul. That would be a fallacy of composition, and that would make me unintelligent, and that I am not. So, the concept of anatta or anatman is a departure from the Hindu belief in the Atman. Well, where is any doctrinal reference to this? Where is any substantiation? There's a neat word. Facts, citations, and substantiation, for which this Encyclopedia Britannica has none. And you know why it has none? Because it doesn't exist. The absence of a self, anicca, impermanence of all being, psychophysical being, correct. But Platonism, Neoplatonism, Pythagoreanism, Advaita Vedanta, they all teach the impermanence of the psychophysical, yes? And dukkha, suffering. Well, suffering can't be denied by anybody. We have to accept that. Are the three characteristics of all existence, of all empirical existence. That is true. Yes, just like the radio breaks and falls apart. Yeah. So the radio is anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Yeah, the psychophysical, the corporeal, is anicca, dukkha. This is not in denial, but the fallacy of composition that these academic stooges, fools, and insufferable, cross-eyed, let's use the word, yeah, I'm just going to stick with the word fool. I don't want to go too far, but they're fools. Recognition of these three doctrines. Now, there's no such thing as a doctrine of anatta. There's only that which is anatta. So, here we go, Encyclopedia Britannica spewing lies, nonsense, and foolishness, and this is what, like, philosophy majors know. Well, Buddhism teaches there's no self, no soul. That's why it's different than Hinduism. Well, this is completely ridiculous. And I quote you, Dr. Anandakitish Kumaraswamy, who said, Buddhism today is most famous for everything it originally never taught. So I have a link to this, by the way, below. It's 12 pages long. Here's all 22 compounds of the term anatta, the 22 things that are said to be anatta, rupa, vedana, sana, sankara, vijnana, the eye, sensations, mentations, nose, tongue, body. All of these things are anatta. There is only that which is anatta. All times anatta and all its variants occur within the Nikayas, i.e. the original teachings. 662. I know all 662. Number of times it occurred is in the Adhikaras or commentaries, 493. I know all of those as well. Okay? There's nowhere within Buddhist doctrine a denial of the soul. That's not my opinion or feeling or belief. It's a hardcore fact. It's undeniable. It's irrefutable. So, Udana 81, this is what we call doctrine. This is what we call a real reference. There is an unborn, an unoriginated, an unmade, an unformed. If there were not, O followers, this unborn, unoriginated, unmade, and unformed, there would be no way out for the born, the originated, the made, and the form. Yes? Amata Dataya, right? This immortal element. Let's give a quote, and this is where the commentarialists and, the secularists actually, show their skirt, if you will. The renowned Theravada materialist said, thus with this doctrine of selflessness, or anatta, falls the entire structure of Buddhism. You see, this literally is the linchpin word that the entire quote-unquote religion. And original Buddhism, of course, the word Buddhism didn't even exist until recently. As I said, Samyutta Nikaya 5.4, Gautama calls his teachings Brahmayana, Path to the Absolute. This notion that Buddhism is something different than Hinduism, it's wholly original. It's complete nonsense. There's no doctrinal basis for it. There's no facts, logic, or wisdom to back up such foolishness. Has no basis in fact, no basis in doctrine whatsoever. But the Theravada Jnanataloka accurately said, this notion that Buddhism is different, original, falls upon the definition of the word anatta. So that's why they guard this word so closely. They can't let it be exposed for what it actually is within doctrine. How dare you, give citations, facts, logic, and wisdom for discussing this term. So, Here's some passages too, by the way. This is what we call facts, logic, and wisdom and citations, making direct reference to actual Buddhism. Found the ancient path leading to Brahman, Seminary Decay 4.117. The soul is having become Brahman. Without taints is meant having Brahmabhu, meaning become Brahman. Become Brahman or Brahmabhu is the meaning of the term Tathagata. Oh my God, that's really, really important. Yeah, to become Brahman is the highest svabhava or self-natures. All the people say that Gautama is the supreme teacher to the way leading to the union with Brahman. Okay, Brahman is not to be confused with a different word that sounds very much the same, or Brahma, i.e. gods. It is in reference to the absolute or to the agathon. I teach the way to the union with Brahman. I know the supreme way to the union with Brahman, and the path and means leading to Brahman, whereby which the world of Brahman maybe meaning path to the absolute. Yes, that of course is the word Tathagata. Tathagata means the body of Brahman, become Brahman, Brahman. By the way, Tathagata means having arrived at Tat, meaning the absolute, i.e. Brahman. Agata is past tense, means you've arrived at. Tat is just as in the passage, Tat Tvamasi, that thou art, that with a capital T, meaning the absolute. So this notion of Hinduism, it's completely ridiculous. The term anatta is explained succinctly in passage 3.196, Samyutta Nikaya. Anatta just means these things are not the soul. A, B, C, X, Y, Z are not the soul. Fallacy of composition to state that there is no soul has no doctrinal basis. In fact, like the way the article that I wrote below, which is, 12 pages long, I'll give you the link below. You could read it with all the pro-Atman passages, and this is only a very small sliver of them. Gives you actual definition of the term in reference to anatta. Yeah, and let's go here a little further, just a little further, if you could bear with me. And there's a lot of stuff in here. This is from book Self and Non-Self in Early Buddhism by great Pali translator Perez Ramon. The anatta taught in the Nikayas has a merely relative value. It's not absolute one. It does not say that the soul has no reality at all, but that certain things, i.e. the five khandhas, which the unlearned man identifies himself, are not the soul, i.e. anatta. And this is why one should grow disgusted with them, detached and liberated. Liberation of what, by what, from what. Suvimutta chittasta nibbana. The thoroughly liberated chitta means nirvana. Chitta, by the way, is just the Pali term for the Greek word nous, yeah, sort of the spiritus sanctum, if you want the Latin, or the soul. So, this is just via negativa, Neti. This is not the soul. If Buddhism taught that there was no soul, there wouldn't be all these things that were said. This is not the soul, that's not the... You would just say, followers, yes, there's no soul. Boom. What? No, that's not... No, there's no soul. There's no such passage. No such passage exists. Why do you think there's so many thousands and thousands of references to this is not the soul, that's not the soul, on and on and on and on? Buddhism does not teach that there is no soul. It's ridiculous. The soul is said to be the light, the charioteer, the refuge, on and on and on and on. This is heretical, ridiculous nonsense that you find online. I'm a philosophy professor. I need to write an article about comparative religion. Oh, here we are on Wikipedia. It says Buddhism teaches there's no soul. That's different than that Hinduism stuff. What? There's no such thing as a religion of Hinduism. That refers to a people. There's no doctrinal substantiation for this nonsense. All these, the references 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all these references point to commentarial dogmatic trash written by various people that has no connection to actual doctrine itself. Since when did commentarialist trash supersede that of actual doctrine that existed, at least at the time of King Ashoka, which is before sectarianism exists, i.e. the Theravadins, the Mahayanas, all these latter-day things, which of course came much, much, much later. All the references that it makes are to Encyclopedia Britannica, which I just got done completely destroying, just flat out destroying. This has no doctrinal substantiation. There is within this take from Encyclopedia Britannica, there is no doctrinal reference to this. It's commentarialist conjecture. It's a phantasm. There is no logic, facts, or wisdom or doctrinal reference in this. It's ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Buddhism, there's no permanent underlying substance that can be called the soul. Well, of course not. You know, there's nothing of the radio that can be called the signal. We have the resistors and the antenna and the the battery and all these things. None of these things are the signal. Yes, that is true. Nothing in the radio. There's no signal in the radio. There's no little people inside the TV. There's no soul in the body either, but I'm not denying the soul. I'm simply saying that there's no soul in the body, because the body is, of course, composed of psychophysical constituents. There's no soul in the body or of the body. Fallacy of composition. Well, there's no soul in the body. That means there's no soul. You see, this is the conclusion you would draw if you were extremely unintelligent. Yes? So, I could drone on and on about this for hours. I could give a 3-hour-long lecture on this with more and more and more citations and reference. But, I think I've gone far enough. So, I don't say this egotistically. I tell you flat out right now, I'm the #1 expert on this topic on planet Earth. And boy, oh boy, I really do mean it. And I can tell you flat out that these references that you see online are ridiculous, absurd, and have no basis in facts, logic, and wisdom. And they certainly have, by their own admission. Here's the Encyclopedia Britannica. There's no reference here. None at all. There's nothing to back this ridiculousness up, even though little portions of it are accurate. There's no soul of the psychophysical human. Well, that's true, but that's not a denial of the soul, and that, of course, is common sense. Of course, there's no soul in the body or of the body. There's no radio signal in the radio either. But I would not be unintelligently saying that there's no signal, would I? Of course I'm not. So, these are written by Western materialists, people that know nothing of doctrine, people that don't know how to translate Pali. They have no idea. They haven't got a single clue in Hades. So I'll tell you flat out, this is ridiculousness. But this is the stuff people see when they do a search on a Bing or Google search. Well, here we go right here. This is Encyclopedia Britannica. This is the authority. They got to know what they're talking about. No, they haven't got a clue what they're talking about. Not a clue whatsoever. Anyway, the reference for the article that I wrote is below. You could read it. It's very edifying and illuminating. We're actually talking about what the teachings are. Tons and tons and tons and tons of references. Something that none of these other people give you. No references at all, except to commentarialists, which of course is not a reference at all. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. Lux Evertas.